talked in previous episodes about verse 1 and 2. The idea being that in the beginning God, meaning Elohim, created the skies and the land. The earth, from a Hebrew perspective, all the universe is encompassed in the skies and the land and eventually the sea, which is included here. You see, the earth, the land, in their mind, was covered by the sea at some point. It was formless and void. Darkness was over the surface of the deep, and the Spirit of God was moving over the surface of the waters. In other words, there's a problem. The problem is chaos and emptiness in pre-creation. And God's going to fix that problem in the rest of the creation story because he is above the problem. You see, the breath, the wind, the ruach of Elohim is above this chaos. Let's start with new content with verse 3. Then God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day, and the darkness he called night. And there was evening and there was morning, one day. The key words we're talking about today are said, saw, good, separated, and called. Let's start. I beg your pardon. Let's start with said. God said. God is the first person to speak in the Bible. And oftentimes biblical characters are described more by their speaking than by their physical descriptions, and sometimes even more than their actions. A good example is the first thing that Moses says is he gets in between two Israelites and he says, "Why are you striking each other?" This tells us that Moses is concerned for justice, and the rest of his character arc will be all about how he is trying to create peace between Israelites. God starts speaking as an act of creation. For God to speak is for things to manifest according to God's will. Just as when humans speak, they are manifesting things according to their will. And what does God says? He says, "Let there be light." We already know so much about God in the first 5 words of his characterization. He speaks and manifests light against darkness, good against evil, order and clarity against chaos and confusion. And then there was light. When God speaks, it manifests surely, sincerely, and concretely. This is why John said that Jesus was the Word of God, because Jesus is the manifestation of God's will. Let's move on to saw. God saw that the light was good. Seeing in the Bible has so many faceted parts to it. One idea of seeing is desiring. When you look at something, you are desiring it, you are wanting it, kind of like a certain fruit in a certain woman later in the story. When you are seeing things, though, you are also sort of weighing in your mind whether something is good or bad. You're exercising the gift of wisdom because you're also exercising the gift of desire. God sees something and he determines that it is good. He is the first wisdom user, the first determiner of value, the first desirer. God sees the light. He likes it. He wants it. And he sees that it is good. And so that we see the function of seeing in the Bible is to decide if something is good or bad. And that leads us to our next word, good. The Hebrew here is tov, which has a soft B, and it's pronounced T-O-V. That's where we get the name Toby from, for instance. But Tov is a very important word. It tells us anytime that we see the word Tov that there's morality at play. God is creating positive morality because he's seeing the light and he's making a judgment value on it. From his perspective, it is good. Therefore, it is good, objectively. And what does God do with the light he's created? He makes it distinct from the darkness and the chaos. He separates it. Separation is an important aspect. To separate something is to make it holy. In fact, that's what the word holy means. The book of Leviticus is a good example. It gives all sorts of explanations on how you should separate, let's say, animals from other animals, or how you should separate parts of animals to make them holy. God is subduing the chaos of creation, the unseparateness of it, the mixedness of it, and he's separating chaos and order. He's solving the problem of tohu wavohu. Later on, he'll solve the problem of it being empty. Next, we have called. This is our last word of the day. God called the light day. He gives it a name, and the darkness he calls night. Calling something is exercising your authority over it. Later on, God will give Adam a huge amount of authority by allowing him to call the animals by their names, or give them their names. So we see who is the ruler and reigner, the determiner of the universe in the opening pages of the Bible. It is no one less than God himself, calling things by his authority and love, day and night. And that is how we can use these words and phrases to read Genesis 1 and the rest of the Bible the way it wants to be read.